Hey, do you want to know a secret that I didn't tell anybody ever?
No.
Well, when I was walking the dog I had before Dwayne, this dog named Mr. T, because when he was a puppy, his hair was sticking up like in a mohawk. And you know how ducks fly home in a V? It's like a V shape when they get home.
Basically, I'm gonna tell you about my
And I was walking
delusions,
my dog, and
by which I mean
I looked up and there's a big V above me, and there's all these ducks flying
to be
back
honest,
to
I
the
don't really
home.
even know what a delusion is, but
Can I please get a beer?
And right when
They're
they
just-
flew above me,
Can't practice, can't practice.
things I know
I saw
are not true,
and they
Symbols that-
crashed into a big
I can't
house.
practice, I can't.
The whole
but
V.
are very
hurt.
easy for me to convince myself
And then they
are.
put
It ain't about that.
And they
At
just
all.
kind of curled up.
It ain't about that at all.
You
You're sitting in here, you're supposed to be the franchise player. And yet here we are,
Have you ever
talking about
seen
you
a
missing
mistake in
practice.
nature?
I really am
sitting
just
here,
testing
I
out
supposed to be
the
the
audio
franchise player.
Have you ever seen the
video
animal make
about
mistakes?
camera.
We talking about practice. You understand me? Practice. Not a game.
Not a game.
Seems pretty good.
Not a game. Not the game you go out there and die for.
Okay.
Not the game
Stop
that I go out there and die for
Right? Play every weekend like it's your last, right? No, we talking about practice, man.
and play every game like it's my last. Not the game. We're talking about practice, man.
Practice. You know you're supposed to be out there. You know you're supposed to lead by example. You just shoving that all aside.
I know I'm supposed to be there. I know I'm supposed to lead by example. I know that. And I'm not shoving it aside.
So here we are, Jamie. We're talking about practice. Not a game. Not the game. We're talking about practice.
We're talking about practice, man. We're talking about practice. We're talking about practice. We ain't talking about the game. We're talking about practice, man.
Thing, but you're not sure
So we
if they
said
actually
this
have any
first
money.
episode was going to be
Oh, no, well, I mean, they have
background.
money.
So
They're currently the highest.
I guess we should
spending
probably
salary
start
in
back
MLS.
in
But we don't know. I'm sorry, I
1999,
misspoke.
give or
I'm
take,
saying we
20
don't know.
20 years
In the
ago.
age of the symbolism I'm fascinated by,
20,
I don't know
21
if this is
years ago,
accurate, but I'm
22
saying it
years
just
ago.
feels accurate. As Miami becomes the
The aliens are fucking great. No, I know. Superman's great. E.T. was nice. The aliens are declaring war on us.
So it's
And that
1999.
became a cottage industry. But
I'm
aliens have been in our life in this pop culture way
12,
that it just seemed like that's
13,
what they were
early
going to be.
10s.
Like this go-to for pop culture
And
stuff that people love. I never
all
thought
of a
we would
sudden,
actually have
across
to
the
deal
country,
with them.
there's a
Well,
huge
I guess I didn't think we'd have to.
yo-yo
They're
boom.
actually, we have to like come up with a
Where-
plan for the weird aliens that are flying around.
For
now.
whatever reason,
But
yo-yos are the
seems as
biggest
though,
thing.
like, I mean, I don't know.
kids
This
my
might be
age,
like
right?
I often say this, how like, although my politics are all over the place, I feel like in some ways I'm kind of fundamentally.
Most of you, if you're watching this,
I kind of want things
probably
to stay as they are. I'm
Yeah.
very hesitant about.
familiar
I'm
with
just,
yo-yos
it seems
today,
like
but
life is changing faster than I
for
can
those of you who are not,
accept it all the time. So by that argument, I
probably
should not
picture
want it.
yo-yo.
Because if aliens suddenly enter
Something
into
like
our
this.
world, it's gonna be some significant changes. We're gonna have to, I have some weird conversations. However, I guess part of me
Maybe wood,
does want
maybe plastic, probably in this shape,
like,
but
if,
maybe
if there are aliens, I want them to show up in my lifetime. Like if
I don't know.
if that
You'd be
can happen,
disappointed if they came.
I should not want aliens. Because if aliens suddenly enter into our world, it's gonna be some significant changes. We're gonna have to,
So a couple
I have some
interesting
weird
facts,
conversations.
or not.
However, I guess part of
Maybe
me
not interesting, maybe
does
not facts.
want.
They say
like,
that the
if there
yo-yo
are
is
aliens,
the
I want them
oldest
to show up in my
toy,
lifetime. Like,
second
if
oldest toy.
if
Not
that
sure
can be
what the oldest would
disappointed
be,
if
but
they
it's
came
one of the
100 years
oldest
Well,
toys ever
I
made.
guess I would be
or invented
like it
or
would
whatever.
be.
And they also say that
I think about this
it
a
was
lot. Like, a guy who
originally
died the
a
day
weapon.
before 9/11 or whatever.
So, like,
It's like it's interesting.
you throw it
to-
at somebody,
it'd be like, I
hits
guess this
them
is
in the
like
head,
sort of the larger question.
in theory, you can bring it back
Let's
to you.
say
Like I
the
said, I don't know if
world
either
is
of those are
going to
true,
end.
but
and it
that's
can
what they
end
say.
when you're 80,
Of course, that's
5 years
hundreds
after you're dead.
or thousands of years ago.
What do you want? And here.
And that happens all the time.
It's happened to me a few times.
Well, yeah, I think anybody who's ever had a story done on them said that. Where it's like that you can't tell if the person is saying this kind of off the cuff, or if they're saying this, sort of half jokingly, or if they're talking about a whole bunch of things, and this is one thing they're also mentioning. It does sort of give this the documentary has the advantage of seeing the person say it, and you get a real sense of like how they meant it.
Yeah. All right, we talked enough about sports. It's time. America's on pins and needles. I can't believe it took an hour to get here. UFOs are real. I've been waiting to talk to you on this podcast. I've deliberately ignored talking to anybody else. We've done a lot of conspiracy stuff over the years on pods. I think that Malaysian flight went down. I think we did an emergency podcast. You love this stuff as much as I do. Under the radar the last year, so much shit was going over the last years. The Pentagon and everybody else has basically just admitted that UFOs exist, and they're.
So it won't be like you're burned. You won't be burned alive. It's not like the aliens are going to come and cover you in acid. You're not going to be eaten by zombies. The world will end.
So we're in the late 90s, and yo-yos are the biggest thing
when you're 80
ever.
And you can see
it. I'm in my early 10s.
You can die, and 5 years later it will happen. And you'll never have to experience it.
I get into it, you know.
I probably want to not experience it.
I'd want it.
You want it. So you're like driving.
Every single one of your ancestors survived. Every single person on your mum and dad's side successfully looked after and passed on to you life. What are the chances of that like? It comes to me once in a while. And everywhere I tell folk it gets the best smile. Billions of years since the outset of time, every single one of your ancestors survived.
So I guess being in the car and establishing that I'm not really going to be able to record my voice.
It's about 90 degrees outside.
So basically, I mean, oh man, how do you even start to get somebody to understand what's going on in your head when you have no idea what they understand, right?
Every day I'm trying to dodge a raindrop till I'm drained, or when the pain stops, it's opportunity with a bunch of problems and more kept coming every week. It was a heavy leak, hourly above my head, but instead I wish it showered me with love. It was there when my mom's passed, when they cut my Comcast, when I witnessed the crime lasting on the day of prime. Even at the playground when I was getting teased, which is why I never sit and think of quitting hitting trees. I'd be up nights wide, it was rarely ever white eyes. It was in a way too much for me to see a bright side. And still I wonder, would it ever strike me down? Cause it most likely sound like you just wanna steal my thunder. All it do is rain, 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 rain on me. So I try to maintain and keep a sane brain, wishing I could leave it all behind on a train, plane, automobile. But I ought to know the water gon' spill.
On the planet, but in the particular of the traffic delusion, basically anytime I'm really tuned into this mindset of Truman showing there and randomly a car will drive by, or you'll hear two cars in the background, and it's significant except for the fact that that car turning onto my block, right, is always specifically aligned with a certain thought in my head, right? So if I'm really in the traffic Truman Show delusion mindset, basically whatever I'm trying to think about or understand, a lot of other people out there are also trying to think about or understand, and for whatever reason it's a lot easier for them to understand it when they're, I don't know, tuned into my wavelength, so to speak. And I guess you have to be a certain amount of close for that to be possible. It's not necessarily just with cars, with traffic. With traffic also, I'll go in someplace when I'm in this mindset and it's completely empty, and you know, every time one of those thoughts. Sorry, I lost my train of thought, but essentially the traffic delusion is somehow the traffic is drawn to the thoughts in my head, you know? But unless I happen to, I don't know. Like I said, they're delusions. Like, I know that it's nothing. So I guess that's the first episode. Car delusion and yo-yos in 1999. Kids loved them. I, for a short while, was into them, and they were all up and down, up and down, up and down. So until next time, I'm gonna go ahead and end this because the battery is about to die, to be honest. Yeah, okay, bye.
They're dead even.
As of
And then
now, we
in
have the
2019,
traffic
that was
delusion.
the year LeBron got hurt, and it just seemed like Durant had passed him, and then Durant gets hurt.
Basically,
and then it flips again, and LeBron ends up winning the
some
title with the
background
Lakers,
on
and
the
now it feels
yo-yos.
like
City. And so that's the only link to it, because it's right now it's just Portland's interested. It makes sense that Portland would be interested. I would think Miami would be a hell of a lot more interested in getting.
So we're in the last half of the 90s, and I'm somewhere between 9 and 12 years old, and to my knowledge at this time, yo-yos basically look like this and are good for this.
This organization is filled with people who have been here like.
I don't know how long I'm into it, maybe a summer, maybe a year, maybe just a few weeks. I have one like specific memory of some church function where everybody had them and everybody was better than I was at them, but I don't really have a lot of specific memories of being a kid with a yo-yo. A lot of those first 13 years or whatever
so that's a different animal.
of my memories are kind of lost or repressed or whatever.
He gets you to the
So,
NBA Finals. I wouldn't leave.
but of course, also at this time, the internet is exploding, and you know, millions of people leave the hobby, but
has now kind of become like the coach's coach.
Maybe not
Like, we talked
millions.
earlier about comedian.
Thousands
I
of
think Eric
kids
Spoelstra now
leave the
is
hobby.
coach's coach, where everyone
But
says, no matter what, Eric
plenty
Spoelstra
more,
is the most out of any team that he has. So, I mean, in some ways, he doesn't have to prove that. Somewhere
Stick
else,
with it,
he's got
obviously,
that reputation
right?
already. But
The
in terms of
internet's
getting
making the
your own
world
thing,
small,
the heat is
and
always bigger
you're
than any one
able to
individual,
find
except for
people
Pat
all over
I'm
that are
looking
into
at
the
that
same
job and
toy,
saying, okay, if something is going to tempt him,
you know,
that's
it's
what
easier
looks
to
like.
start
You
to
got a
learn
star, it's a city
more
that he likes,
tricks,
and you get
and
an upgrade in your power.
more
you become
companies
somebody
are,
who is- he does
hey,
not
we
run
can
this
sell stuff
organization.
online,
He
and
is
we
one
don't,
of a
you know, have to
handful of
rely on
forces.
But he has to know
whatever
that stars
local
will
area
stay
we
on
have. so let's make yo-yos, right? So
Might not be happy there.
2000 to 2010 or so, that's basically my understanding of it. You know, certain people stick with the hobby, and
this will be his second job, and there will
all
be a
these
third.
little companies pop up, and these big companies pop up, and so they spin forever and won't come up unless you
What's the
know,
appetite to be out from under the
you
parental
do a specific trick that forces extra string into the gap of the yo-yo, you know, and makes it roll itself back up, right?
Hypothetical. I will say it again. I don't know.
And
look.
We're pretty much caught up to the present on the yo-yos.
Him and LeBron, I think, are the two best players.
They're modern. They're
of the past
unresponsive,
15 years
meaning they will
by
not
any
come back to your
calculation.
hand when
I
you
don't-
pull it
I don't
up.
care where you're going with it. And it was always weird to me.
They're
that he never
anywhere
got credit. I think it was
from
from some of the
$5,
choices
$10
you
for
saw
a
tonight.
plastic
Tonight was his
mass-produced
masterpiece.
one to
It still doesn't mean
hundreds
that
and hundreds of dollars for
Just
fancy
FYI.
titanium ones, or
by, like, I hate to say this,
you
but
know,
like, I felt like Giannis
the instant sellouts at the small batch 10 at a time
where
where
they do different things.
it's a great
But
yo-yo
even the fact that Giannis
and it's
was
a
guarding
great
him, I was
colorway,
just kinda like,
and
take a shot at that.
you have 100
Like,
people
take a
trying
shot
to
at
buy
Giannis putting
10
out there on him and just like
pieces of
I don't
art,
know what they
you
were like. Were
know,
they saving Giannis for
for
like,
$150. Those
offense?
ones you might be able to
There was-
buy it
there
for
was a way in
$150,
which, like,
resell it for
Durant was
$500 the
separated
next day.
from the crowd
You
tonight,
know,
that I
obviously
thought was
people
really
don't like
special.
that because
Yeah, and
that's
if you're a Bucks fan,
just
you
kind
might
of
as well
shady.
do this
You know,
now.
the people making
First of all, if that
yo-yos
was the
like this
Celtics,
are,
I would not have
it's a
been able to take the
passion. Very,
podcast.
very,
I
very
was
few
had a
people
time
are
out there
able to
Blair
make
Witch
an
turned
actual
against the wall,
living
just staring at
on these
nothing.
things, right?
Of that Brooklyn team, and it was
I'm not
like,
really sure how
I think
I
that everybody saw that they were
rediscovered
witnessing
them.
something special. The problem is that like the only person who
I know
did
that
it
I was
Bud.
living
Like,
here
the
out
only
in
person who
Portland,
wasn't like,
and
what's, like, the
there's a
emergency? I have
company
to pull
in
the
Oregon
lever
called
was
One
Bud.
Drop, one
Yeah,
of the
well,
most
I would throw James Harden in there as
popular
well. He had some pretty
small
bizarre
independent
moments. I
yo-yo
like to talk
companies
about
out
him
there.
either. What's interesting
And I
about
think
Durant,
what
so
must
he
have
wins the 2
happened
titles
was
with Golden
during
State.
that
And he has some great head-to-head stuff with LeBron, and the 2
fidget
game threes
spinner.
in Cleveland were both really good games, and he hits
Boom,
the big
a few
shot
years
in both
ago,
of those games.
which I also found
2019
fascinating.
Felt like
I
that was going to be his year.
started looking
where
into
it's
that,
like,
and I
now,
think that must have led me to One
Kyle
Drop,
already was the
who
best player in the league, but
they're
now
one of the
really
only
landed
companies in the
smackdown. He
United
ends up
States
getting
that
hurt,
makes
and
the
it gets
actual
taken away from him.
yo-yos
I wasn't sure if we were going to see it
in
again.
the United
He's
States.
never had a game
They're
this
very,
special
very
in a moment
precisely
this
made,
special.
but even
I wasn't
mass-produced in
expecting that
China.
to be the new big three, Chris Wright.
You know, like they're
Jeff Green going like Reggie Miller in the garden.
you set the machine,
I was not ready for that.
you pump out
He
a
had
bunch of
5
them,
threes in the
100 at
first
a
3
time or
quarters,
whatever.
and basically,
Like it's
if you
not
went
going to
2
be
for
any
5,
different
you're
than
down
if they
by
were made
20
in the
plus
United
and the game's
States.
over.
Yeah,
Like, he has to hit all 5
But
of
One
them.
Drop does make them in the United States, and
relatively open,
they also
but it
made a
wasn't
fidget
like he
spinner
was, like,
during that
by
hype,
himself on an island.
I
Like, he
guess.
was playing within the flow of the game. I was really surprised
Because they're kind of
to see
similar. They
Harden
have
out there the
bearings and they
entire
spin.
game, essentially as a decoy.
So I guess what fascinated me about the fidget spinner thing was not the fact that kids were into them. It was the fact that
horrific in this
non-kids were into them. So like, there are people that saw this and they're like, oh, hey, this is cool. Let me make those. And then they make a company in a summer out of designing and making fidget spinners that cost hundreds of dollars. And that kind of led me down this path of this whole subculture of other stuff that people make that people collect. And I've always been a collector, so the fact that, you know, you could go out there and buy a yo-yo for,
I know we're defending him a little bit differently, but
you know, $200 and it will sell out immediately. Like that just blew my mind, and it was really interesting. And
Harden bringing the ball up
you
towards
know,
the end
I
of the
had to
game,
try it.
and they-
It worked for me, kind of like
it wasn't like he was a DH.
it was like a meditative thing.
He's also
you
their
know,
rim
obviously
protector
there's a
on
lot of
defense.
shit going on
Listen,
up
that was in the
in
running
my
for
brain,
the best
and
two-way games I think I've ever seen anyone play.
for a few years
I'm not prepared
I started
at
painting
8:19,
back in the
10
day,
minutes
and I
after
kind of
the
did
game
the
ended
same thing.
to
I could
keep
just
my complete list.
find a
but
picture,
I'd find
you
it
know,
hard pressed to remember
map
somebody
it out,
playing a more memorable, important,
add the
clutch,
color,
two-way game with their season on the line, right? Because
until it looks right in my head, and I just not have to think about stuff. And this is the same thing. I've never gotten any good at it. I'm not good at it.
So it's like, now you're in a situation where you're coming out of this
But I
game
can
and
sit
you
there
have
for
all
5
of this
minutes and just
leverage over the
throw
other
it
team.
around and
yeah, the two-way
watch it
play
do
was
its
amazing.
thing,
I actually
mess
thought that
around,
some of
and
They wonder where he's going to end up. He ends up at 49,
it's just really,
17, and 10.
really fascinating to
20
me
points in
that
the fourth quarter, 16
this
for 23.
toy that's hundreds or
13 for
thousands of
16
years
from the
old
line. And as
at
you
this
said,
point
he played all
will
48 minutes.
spin for,
This is a guy
you know,
who
5
almost 2
minutes
years
at a
ago this
time,
week
and
blew out his
you have
Achilles.
people doing these
I have been
ridiculously
riding for this for a
intense,
while. One of my
crazy
best dudes.
combos
Game like this,
where like
43 minutes, 44 minutes, maybe
you won't be
steal
able
a
to
little
tell what's
minutes
going
here and there.
on.
Nash was
I
like,
can't
"Fuck
tell what's
it.
going
I've
on,
been in
and I'm
games like
into
this.
the hobby.
Hey,
But
you're
you can
staying
tell
out
it's
there."
really impressive, and
it
the
was
thing
just,
does not stop
to me, like,
spinning
the
for
shot
that
making,
entire
the
time.
creativity,
And
the clutch shot,
it'll do
that
things
play,
like
the biggest play that
The
Harden
one that
has,
Harden-
an awful possession.
Yeah.
gyroscopic
The
flap,
Harden,
where
like, screwing
I
up the
guess
shot
it's
clock
like
at half court, and then Durant
you know,
coming
you
in and
have
saving it like that.
the
and,
spinning.
oh my god, I just can't. It was
And then
like-
when you apply
also, it's
force of
really
the
cool
string in
because I
different
think that this
directions, it'll
season-
spin this way, but
well,
it'll
because,
also
like,
spin this
the
way.
main three of Brooklyn missed so much time.
Right.
They haven't played that many games together. Is
And
that
it
at
doesn't
various points it was a different
logically make a ton of
and
sense,
you could just feel
right?
with Brooklyn
But
in the building for that game, and like
it's
you could
fascinating,
just
it's
see it.
interesting,
That was like
and
a March Madness crowd or something.
I just
these days there's literally no such thing as like a bad yo-yo. You just find one that you like the look of it, and it'll do everything you possibly want or need it to do.
You ever want something?
At least there's not likely to be whatever. So all of these, I'm sure you've figured out by now, pretty much the same thing. Let's see if we're close enough to get out like that. Alright, so which one are we on? This one is actually really good because it's one of my favorite songs. See, like, there's this guy. No, never mind. He was looking in the other direction. So I'll do a quick. Spend the night somewhere, end up in a hotel, go home to visit my family, any of that sort of thing. And it's basically what you would expect. Like I said, someone else's house, more likely. And essentially, it's kind of like, even if I know you're not a real person or you're not part of life, you spend 15, 20 years kind of like sleepwalking through your life, and all of a sudden it's like nothing is real. So I understand that, and I know that there's not like some conspiracy to make me drink whole lot you can do. This train is now backing up. They were going to reverse to let us through. They're just blocking somebody else off down the way that they. So I really don't know what's going on, but kind of annoying. But yeah, lots of people stuck somewhere I don't want to be, unexpected, and all of a sudden you're in the mindset where it's like there's a camera on you and somebody else decided to have, you know, a Gatorade bottle and 2 boxes of Q-tips on your coffee table, you know, which is really annoying and frustrating. Because you know it's not that. I'm trying to find a specific song. I guess a lot of this is just depersonalization. Where did I leave off?
And even if a plane crashes tonight, she'll find some way to disappoint me by not burning in the wreckage or drowning at the bottom of the sea.
One of the purchased lines in any music I enjoy. Even if her plane crashes tonight, she'll find some way to disappoint me by not burning in the wreckage or drowning at the bottom of the sea. Be moving. Something brings it out, you know, so there's a good chance that that first mental breakdown, I'm pretty sure, was just straight lack of sleep, you know, but I mean, like I said, that's the thing that's messed me up the most. that I know has messed me up the most. What all else has attributed to it? Like, I'm definitely not gonna say it's got nothing to do with psychedelics or marijuana or, you know, what have you. But at this point, it doesn't really matter, you know, because it's been 10 years of not doing the things that should be messing me up, and I'm obviously
never had that kind of relationship in a world. You're always afraid to take the first step because all you see is every negative thing 10 miles down the road.
See, and then sometimes it's like, bro, we were so close to the. Oh no, we weren't. I thought that was the end. Alright, well, I'm gonna go. Battery's down to 34%. And I now have officially like 25 minutes of me just talking here. Which is not the point. But none of us wanted to learn. The money we earn, something to burn. Why would they give me a turn now? Feeling hungry and clothing naked. You mistaken, the world is cold and it's lonely, ain't it? When them high rollers home to Vegas, raided with some home invasion. Contaminating the place with plague, we just saved the day. I waste away in a room, spitting these raps. Yahweh put the world in my hand, I'm giving it back. We major, I waste away in this room, spitting out raps. Yahweh put the world in my hand, I'm giving it back. And then Mac Miller, there's just something about this album specifically, but I guess a lot of his music that just, I don't know, like really struck me. And a lot of it is this same stuff where I guess his music is just kind of how I feel a lot of the times. I didn't expect that to happen, that, you know, by episode 4 I would have this many people following along. So, if you will, so today I'm going to do the last delusion, the big one for now, and I'll answer those questions because they also tie into the yo-yo thing. So for now, I'm going to go up this mountain, see if I can.
Where I've just been saying, like, oh my
and
God,
they're kind of
so much,
basically
and they've texted you throughout your life
the same question
every time, like, hey, congrats on your communion, and you're like, thank you.
Well, not that. I mean,
I'm saying
all right, so
as an example.
the first question was essentially, other than yo-yos and
back like 2 years,
mental
and I'm just
illness,
in way too deep, because the
what
initial
else
one, I felt like,
am
oh,
I
can't be
into,
rude and
or are you into?
being nice to me, right? And then I dropped it, but then they just come and they keep doing it.
And the
like,
second
nice
was
things. And then
somewhat related, but it was specifically about the yo-yos, and that was to talk more about the specific ones I'm using.
It is, but I almost would rather have that.
So we'll go with those two. Is what I'm going to talk about while
So I have a confession.
I'm here.
It's not going to paint me
In all of the cities that you associate with fan cruelty.
Okay, so
Thank you.
this might be a bit longer than the other ones, although if you've been watching, you'll know that
It's not a reputation that began because people started just
I don't really
making
have
stuff
any
up
sort of.
about a city. Now they can think that they've improved and been better, but Philadelphia is known as
They're all way too long. They were supposed to be 5. It was originally going to be called 5 Minute Spin because it's 5 minutes of.
And they won the game.
the yo-yo with
Right, but I think a lot of that with Philadelphia fans, like some of the stuff they've done is ridiculous, uncalled for. But I think if they're being
so that you can see how the
if you want to call it to Ben Simmons, I understand why. That's all I'm saying. They've gone over the line before, there's no question about it. But I'd be angry at Ben Simmons.
I know, but sometimes you always feel entitled to the cruelty of your sports voice. That's why you're a sports emotional fan. Like, you always feel entitled to be as cruel as possible.
They call it throwing, I guess, in the community.
Because they make $35 million a year. Like you
throw the yo-yo.
Because I care about the teams, Dan. I'm passionate about my teams. I care about them. And if a guy
anyway, point is, it might be a little bit long because this is kind of the ultimate delusion. I'm just kind of skipping to the end.
I'm not. You're right.
You're defending it right now. And if in other relationships, human relationships that I gave,
might be too long.
If I said to you,
I'm going to answer the
really care about each
first
other.
two
And
or
also,
three
one of them is
quote-unquote
really
fan questions
you
that
would say,
I've received.
That's not great. That's not great for the relationship. But I know why you feel entitled to that. Yes.
How do you not? So you look at the text without actually clicking on it.
So
Like,
what else am I into?
Where you'll go like hours. It's like, how has he not looked at his phone yet? So
basically, everything I'm into is things to take my mind off of the mental illness. So what am I into other than yo-yos and mental illness? Nothing.
But what do you do? Like, Roy, you texted me last night, and I gave you the answer right away.
So for a while, about 10 years ago, when this 10, 15 years ago, when this kind of all really started.
Father's Day. My first Father's Day. Happy Father's Day. And you know what?
So yeah, about 10 years ago when this all started, I picked up a paint brush and paints and, you know, $30 worth of random art supplies and started painting. My mom is an artist, so I kind of grew up around
my cousin, who's my age,
art,
is also a
and it was always like,
we privately had these conversations in the past where we were like, why?
You know, like you're creative growing up, and then
I don't know
13, 14,
right?
whatever.
So
between
the first person replied to that, thank you so much. We're
school just sort of like
whatever, right? Yeah.
Beating that out of you, and the mental stuff coming on.
Why are we in this again? And who the hell?
You spend 10 years not being creative.
Right now
I was really into during that time.
So sure enough,
I was really into movies. I got into.
He said, "Hey,
you know, films."
So then we have about
probably starting at 16 or so,
all kind of trying to catch up and see what's going on.
Through college,
says, oh, no,
that's pretty much what I did the most. I just watched everything from.
In the Bahamas. So then I replied,
really, the 60s is, you know,
right?
where kind of
like,
I started, but plenty before that. But the 60s is my favorite decade for film.
And then we will never be invited back to these
so painting and film were my first two kind of like.
But it's a risk I'm willing to take if I never have to be part of these holiday group texts ever again.
Mental.
So basically,
nonsense.
You're normalizing, basically. You're acting like Billy. Normalizing.
Well, no, but with strangers.
And actually, I guess the very first one, and the one that kind of ties it all together, would be I'm big on collecting stuff. You know.
I found out that I did know. But here's the thing. And
as a kid, it would have been baseball cards.
I'm gonna say the name because I know that this person is gonna hear this ever.
At one point, I had
outed myself as one of the participants in the chicanery that was going on
ceramic
Father's Day. My godmother
figurines. I'm pretty sure.
I'm texting what I can't. Go on.
My godmother made the mistake of replying to the person that said that they were in Bimini and said, Renee.
So I started out collecting as a young kid, Beanie Babies.
And now Renee,
when that was like a huge thing, I remember
everybody else a happy Father's Day.
The whole family,
has given us a name.
Mostly me and my mom, but I guess the other kids too kind of.
So Father's Day went on with us.
Got into that.
I'm gonna get these changed. I'll just read it to you.
And then I got into film.
What a betrayal of everybody involved in your private life. You know this isn't going to get back to all of these people?
Oh, I don't know that at all. But, you know, we're in too deep now. We're already got it.
Sorry, I know I'm just rambling. I'll try to make it make sense. Alright, so, right now, the big thing, the painting, I just need a better spot, and it's kind of like, I figured that out, you know, like I know how to make what I want to make. It's gonna take me a little bit to find the answer. Which I'm just waiting, and then so far has really just been other artists that portraits, other artists that inspire me. musicians, filmmakers.
Guys are
Just
open to having things.
It's
culture
a
is
safe
growing,
space.
you know?
I admitted that I text people new phone Buddhists that already have their phone.
I'll have to find something else to put over this for the drowning outness, because I just keep trying to listen to what they're discussing on the podcast and I'm losing track. So other than mental illness and yo-yos, I'm into collecting stuff and painting portraits of other artists that I am influenced by, and the newest meditative hobby other than the yo-yos, which again is kind of all connected, I guess, is I collect autographs of the same people that I paint portraits of, basically. And that's a direct result of the yo-yo thing, although I don't know exactly how they became linked. I've always been fascinated by autographs, and as a kid I had some that I'd pick up here or there, which, since it was the 90s and there was a very, very big sports forgery thing going on in the 90s, I have no idea if any of what I had as a kid was real. I think I got some. Moved at 11, 12, 13 to the Tampa Bay area, and that's kind of when I started watching football, so I was by default a Tampa Bay Bucks fan, and I believe I got some stuff signed in person at some mall or something, Rondé Barber maybe. But I also know I had a Ken Griffey Jr. baseball that I bought at Target or something, when they used to have the sports cards. They'd also sometimes have mystery autograph baseballs or just autograph baseballs, and those I have no idea if they're real. So replacing some of those things from the childhood, and I guess the biggest thing, these days is the yo-yos and the autographs, and then the rest of the time is pretty much split between work and not work, which is sitting around and trying to figure out how to crawl out of the quicksand. So when I first got into the yo-yo thing, it was the physics thing, that you can make something spin two different directions at the same time just by tightening the string a certain way, or something that I knew as it goes up, it comes down, it goes up, it comes down, or I guess vice versa, it goes down, it comes up. Had transformed into something that, you could literally catch it on your finger and it will spin, horizontally, just like a basketball, like a Globetrotters trick or whatever. And I was like, this shouldn't be able to do these things, But another big part of it was the community behind the yo-yos. Obviously all online, because that's pretty much where I've lived my life for the last 20 years, is sleepwalking through your waking life, so to speak, and online is kind of the only place that I'm sure many people feel like, hey, I can be real that I do face, you know. So there's a few big yo-yo communities online, but that was, you know, as important as the meditative turn off my brain and toss the yo-yo around was the actual like objects themselves, the little crazy metal pieces of art, so to speak, that was equally as important, you know, like just they're all exactly the same as far as like design and like what they do and whatnot, but the colors and the shapes and, you know, they're pieces of art. Not every company necessarily thinks of them that way, but lots of companies did. A lot of the community is people that are into yo-yos the same way that I found myself into them. Making company basically as a passion, you know, as a hobby. Like, hey, I can put $1,000 down and send a CAD file to some manufacturer in China, and 6 weeks later have a yo-yo in my hand that I can sell and say, hey, I designed this and this is my company or whatever. And that's, you know, that's how the majority of the economy is, or the whatever. So you find you find the companies and you find the designs that look interesting, and you can communicate with the quote-unquote professionals or the stars or the company owners, because it's such a niche little thing, relatively speaking. But else that I was starting to make, and I just can't talk about any of that because I signed, you know, NDA paperwork, and just out of respect to the people involved, you know, I don't know what I can and can't say about what I was trying to do in their situation. So I just want to make sure it's clear that you're not getting the full picture here. You know, I think I mentioned liking to make art kind of sloppy, you know, like part of why I never got good at yo-yos is because I want it to look like I want to do what feels good, and what feels good is often not what looks good, if that makes sense. Same with the paintings, you know, you'll find portraits that, like, the only way I know how to finish a piece of art is for it to not be finished, you know, like, if everything is art and art is everything, it's obviously also kind of separate from everything, and the only way that I can, like, get that point across, I guess, is to so, like, I'll take, for example, with the portraits, I'll take a picture of the person that influences me and I'm inspired by, and I'll have it on my phone, and I will, you know, kind of just mentally enlarging the picture onto a canvas, and then look at it and just kind of add the light or the color until it looks how I want it to look, at which point it's done, but it's never really done. Going back to the too many people in this world thing, you can find these companies, these hobbies, these passions in literally like any, you know, if you're into writing or pens. You know, there's somebody out there making high-end, basically handmade pens, and there are a group of 100 customers trying to buy the 10 pens that drop every month, and 90 of them are missing out, and they're mad and sad, and the same dramas will pop up, and you know, whatever the case may be. Obviously, I would imagine this all sort of started with the sneaker game, Jordan specifically. Feels like, bro, this dude is just driving his car straight into this park that you're definitely not supposed to be driving into, so that's weird. I mean, collecting, I'm sure, has always been there, but so yeah, that's a little bit about the yo-yos that I'm into. Let's see if I can stretch this. If you ever see this brand, that's G2, G squared. Art, A-R-T, doesn't really have a logo as such, but those are the two companies I would have used the most, which are the most recent things that have been shut off the brain, which seems weird with autographs, I know, because like I'm not actually like a autograph seeker. I'm not gonna go up to Wiz Khalifa or, you know, any of these people and like try to track them down and get them to sign my baseball, you know. Although I do keep, since I've been into it, I keep blank baseballs in the car, in all of my bags, just in case I ever were to happen to come across somebody. I'm not sure if I would actually be able to ask them, because it's a weird thing to be like, hey, sign this for me, but there's just something about, you know, these people are great at what they do or what they've done and inspire me in some way, and there's just something about, even if it's like just ink, you know, it's kind of the most base form of everybody's creation, I guess. You know, the first thing you learn to write is your name, probably, and it transforms into this thing that these days, you know, if you're into this hobby, the big thing is, oh, it's just everybody gives a scribble and nobody knows how to write in cursive and blah blah blah, and that's true. And like, because of my mental stuff, there are a lot of people who I would enjoy owning their autograph, but it's like, what's the point if you're literally gonna have a poster of a movie you like and the director's scribble is on it, and great, and you know it's the director's scribble, but if it's literally just, you know, a scribble, that to me it's just not aesthetically pleasing enough. It would mess with my mental to be like, I know this was signed by but all you get is this little weird L thing, and obviously I understand it from their point of view, and it's great for the people that are like, hey, this is my number one and I just need to have this person. But for me, that's looking at it for the art, really. I guess like I want it to at least be, you know, like Taylor Swift. Like, she does a lot of these, sells her own albums signed online, which is how people kind of sell albums these days, is you gotta sign, you know, sell a $12 signed copy of the cover or whatever to get 100,000 fans to buy it, but then you have to sign 100,000 CDs, and a lot of the artists will just scribble something or, you know, use ghost signers or auto pen, which is a big problem. Like, you know, people can tell, like, there's people that study these things and authenticate, and like, you know, it's just, it's handwriting, even if it's a signature. Like, there's certain things you can't fake. But my point was, Taylor Swift, as far as we can tell, signs all of her stuff, and it's kind of like a TYLR is what you get, but it's maybe the heart at the end, but it's so consistent and it's been so consistent and it's so clearly hers that, like, you know, yeah, I'll buy 10 of her latest CD because she's such a big part of pop culture and has never made a bad song. And 10 years from now, those $10 signed CDs, they're gonna be in the hands of fans, and the ones that are new fans are gonna be like, hey, I want that, and those $10 signed CDs are now $150 or $200, or whatever the case may be. So there's some investment, and there's some, you know, like, all right, I'm gonna go because this park, there's too many people, and like I said, I haven't even started on this main delusion, so this last episode is gonna be probably way too long. Maybe I'll split it into two. But those are the first two questions, fan questions. So, until next time, when I am hopefully able to describe the I am not in control delusion, I'm gonna go ahead and let you go. Bye. If you know me in real life, which I guess nobody really does, I tend to talk a lot about how there's just too many people in the world, and I don't mean that in like a negative way. I just mean that, like, you know, if you think of something, there is a significant group of people out there that is really, really, really into that something, and you know, especially with the internet, of course, that's the case. You know, of course, they never, just because I stopped caring about yo-yos at 13 after 6 weeks or a month or a year or whatever it was, doesn't mean everybody did that. And of course, some people went on and continued making and buying and playing with yo-yos for that whole 10 years, 15, 20 years that I was out of the game. Because why not? You know, like, we've gotten to the point where there's just so many people, and nobody really has to do, or I don't know, you gotta have a way to fill your time, I guess. So yo-yos is now a business, is now a category, you know, like, as technology goes on, like, there's so many groups like this, little hobbies that people are passionate about, that I kind of like follow on the surface level, and it's just fascinating because, I mean, they're all exactly the same, you know, you have the same dramas that pop up, and the same issues with money, and the same issues with, like, supply and demand. So the companies that I particularly collect, there's really two companies that I like. One of them, the one that makes this and most of the yo-yos that I've been using throughout this, also made this shirt, is called G Squared. And they're probably one of the most kind of hype brands. There are some like ultra high-end titanium only brands, and some like made in Japan, like high performance and blah blah blah. But as far as like United States based, just somebody that came out of the community, you know, and decided to make this a thing, it's one of the two major hype brands out there, and that's kind of what I collect, is that brand, because he makes some of the best yo-yos. It's a one-man deal. He makes some of the best looking and best playing yo-yos, and they can obviously get really expensive, especially on the secondary market. You can easily, like, I have yo-yos that I could easily take right now and double my money what I paid, you know, and the yo-yos I might have paid $150 for. So, you know, that's a lot of money for a yo-yo. But that is the one brand. The second brand is a former, I believe, if not national champion. He's actually from Canada, but I believe he was a world champion 10 years or so ago. One of the child prodigies that stuck with it in the late 90s. And just, you know, by 2005 or 6, even earlier than that probably, is going to all the contests and winning championships and blah blah blah. And then eventually he kind of grows up and retires out of that scene, but still wants to make yo-yos, still wants to, like, he's an artist, you know, like he wants to live in this world. And so he does, he makes yo-yos. And I think I have one from that company as well. That is A-RT, so art, A return tops. I believe the A stands for alternate. This is actually a collaboration between an A/RT, alternate return tops. I guess in Canada they have to call them return tops because some company trademarked the term yo-yo, or whatever. So ART and G squared collabed on this one. This is the painted version by that particular world champion. He does a lot of, these are called organic shaped because they're, so this one is the shape of probably profile of his yo-yo, the Grail, which is one of the most popular yo-yos over the last 5 years or so. And then it's got the cup design of one of G Squared's most popular yo-yos, the Warthog. And basically it's just those two yo-yos mashed up, and this is the painted version. So those are the two companies that I collect primarily. There's a couple others. The one that initially introduced me, One Drop, out of Oregon. I think they're in Eugene. Makes really good stuff, and I'm a big supporter of theirs, but I just have to keep the collection kind of like really, really tight, or else, one, I'll spend way too much money, and two, just mentally, like, One Drop has probably 60 different yo-yos, and like, I know that I can't have that many, you know, like I can't collect them all. I can't do that, so I kind of stick with the people that I've been able to speak to one-on-one and support, and really, like, I won't say become friends with, because I'm just a customer ultimately, but like, you know, like when you're on such a small, relatively small scale, you kind of have to be willing to talk to the people that want to talk to you, especially these days with Facebook and, you know, the internet. You have to market directly to the people, and those would be the two guys that have kind of most been willing to understand and put up with my weird questions and thoughts and like mental stuff. And both of those companies are, you know, high-end boutique. They do some made in America, some made overseas, instant sellout. And it's like you can find, hold on, I'm gonna get another clip going real quick. Sound, body, and feelings, and fix my MO. It was also, you know, 16 or 17, 18. And then if you watch what it kind of morphed into, it's like you take his whole catalog now, and I don't know, it's such a representation of his life that, like, if I had started making music when I was 16, I think what I would have come out with over the past 20 years or whatever is the fact that DJ Drama is doing the whole Gangsta Grizzles. I mean, I could argue that was like the start of this journey was, you know, his mixtapes with Lil Wayne. In a lot of ways, I was in college for film at the time, but in a lot of ways, that was like the biggest thing that kind of like opened my mind to the fact that I needed to be doing something creative, and that was 3, 4, 5 years before the first breakdown that actually got me to not necessarily do anything creative, but know that I had to. So, alright, I'm gonna go now for real because I think I have one more story about the control delusion, and then maybe I'll just collect some autograph stuff footage. But then it's just a matter of putting it all together. But it's gonna be way, way longer than I expected, so I guess I should just go. I'll be back with one more update at some point. And I guess thanks for watching. Alright, bye. Sometimes I think that maybe some people just aren't cut out for living or life. So like the other day I'm watching basketball and it's the last game of that Bucks-Brooklyn game, and it looks like it's that bird that I told you about that was walking funny. It's the same one, and I think it just has a bad leg, but it's now like really close to my car. Anyway, so I'm watching it, and it looks like Kevin Durant and Giannis Antetokounmpo's season with this game-winning three-point shot that turns out was a two-point shot because he was too close or whatever. And in that moment, bro, this guy, Giannis, is 10 inches taller than me, 10 years younger than me, makes more in 20 minutes of one game than I make. So again, I don't know when I'll use this, if I'll use this, but I just want to say, Lil Wayne is probably my favorite artist of all time. Talks trash about Lil Wayne, like I just, if you talk trash about Lil Wayne or you don't eat your bagels sandwich, I just can't trust you, you know? I've been doing this since he was like 12, and he's the GOAT. He's been doing it for 25 years, 35 years, however long it's been, mid-90s, and he's never missed a step, you know, like obviously he grew into his own thing in 2008 with Carter 2 and 3, 6, 7, 8, that area. Anyway, my point was, I like art that I make to be go. I don't know exactly where I am. I'm kind of lost. So I'll talk to you later. Let's see if I can get real quick.
And a player that is rising amidst the chaos is a guy who, one, is the best mid-range shooter in the NBA. Kirk Goldsberry had a good piece on this.
I think he's gonna get away. He's gonna get behind this car before. Oh no, he just wants to drink some water.
At least, and he's just like he's making something out of nothing. And I think it's appropriate that he is
that guy, right?
MVP of this particular postseason.
Yeah, he. So I just walked away about the Suns for a while. When you watch them, the word that always
behind that car now.
The Suns is platonic. Like
if he pops back up,
to me is like the platonic idea.
I'll show you his weird walk and
today and
broken
also,
wing.
Argue it would have been the same maybe like 15, 20 years ago.
It is weird to me that he just hangs out at this one part of the park. You know.
2 prototype wings, and you have the prototypical scoring guard.
All right, I'm gonna go. Maybe
broke the mold. This is the guy.
Film a little bit more yo-yo stuff.
You would give him this dude's brain.
Although I know I have plenty of that, so maybe not.
A little taller or whatever, but like this
I've been waking up super early recently,
like, when you watch,
and I don't know why.
And there's been so many runs, and Justin was talking a little bit earlier about watching the regular season.
But it's only like 8:15, and I've been up for
rehearsal for the postseason, and then
almost 2 hours.
I felt a little anticlimactic to see so many superstars go out, but during the regular
I gotta make it till at least
25, chances are that
12 or 1 before I can
we lost that one. You know, and then
justify being at home and
it's unlikely that a team
falling asleep on accident
make up a 25-point difference
because it's a day off.
But that's happening pretty routinely.
I wake up too early and
maybe not 25 points, but
don't have the energy.
Getting erased.
So the bird did walk back across the broken wing weird walk guy, but then I just saw him when he was already back in the park. He is right behind that tree.
And it's been debated, it's already been dissected to death, but that Clippers cut it to 7.
Oh, there he comes.
In Game 6.
I don't know if you can see
him. And Chris Paul is just like, nope, we are not going to get into trading body blows with these guys.
Trying to get you outside real quick.
I guess my only counter would be Davis too much time in these playoffs, even though he's still in the playoffs.
That's him in the bottom left.
I mean, I'm kind of giving him a pass.
There's a little bit of a dip, so you can't really see his walk.
Did you watch after they won the game the other night, and he was just like,
or his
really
broken wing,
who he was touching and like going into the stands?
But here he comes.
I have now officially gotten to the point where I don't understand why some guys are wearing masks, some guys aren't.
He doesn't really want to show.
Some guys are
apparently
random fans.
His
some guys seem to be like off by themselves.
broken wing. I think it's the other side. You can kind of see it hanging down there.
Coaches are wearing masks. Aren't like, and then even have you been to a game in the last couple of weeks? So it's like it also seems like we've gotten kind of to that like just below my nose or hanging off my chin area. Right.
All right. Well, I'm done.
Is it okay?
Yeah, because Dodger Stadium, like I went the other week and Dodger Stadium was obviously outdoors, masks off, but yeah, it's.
Sorry, I didn't even know this thing zoomed in that far.
I still don't really.
That was way too close. All right, I'm done. I'm gonna go.
Someone he had COVID, so he was.
Have a good one.
There seems to be a consensus that he did have COVID. I can't.